And we're back with a closer look at campaign 2020. With the New Hampshire primary just 2 days away, we have a final version of our New Hampshire Battleground Tracker. Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders is on top in our poll with 29% of likely voters. Former South Bend, Indiana Mayor Pete Buttigieg has 25% support. Massachusetts Senator Elizabeth Warren's at 17%. Former Vice President Joe Biden at 12%, with Minnesota Senator Amy Klobuchar coming in at 10% of support. The remaining candidates register 2% support or less, and of course, former New York Mayor Michael Bloomberg is not on the ballot in New Hampshire. We're joined now by CBS News Elections and Surveys Director Anthony Salvanto. Anthony, good to have you here.
Thanks.
So does Mayor Pete's success in Iowa translate to New Hampshire?
Apparently it does. He's up double digits from the last time we polled New Hampshire, and as you said, just back of Bernie Sanders in what was our polling going into yesterday. Now, the tracker may be final, but this race certainly isn't, because only 39% of people told us that they had definitely made up their minds. So what you see in this dynamic right now is this kind of Bernie Sanders solidity against the Buttigieg bounce, which is to say Bernie Sanders has been very steady in his support there. He's got the most enthusiastic backers, and he hasn't gained or lost very much, but Buttigieg is up specifically. He's drawing from the moderates in the party who used to be for Joe Biden, and that's kind of the anatomy of what a bounce looks like at this point.
You said it's fluid. New Hampshire's notorious for being kind of unpredictable up until the last moment.
Yes.
So what are the scenarios you've played out?
So the way to look at this is what could happen, what's a range of possibilities. One is that enthusiasm helps out Bernie Sanders a lot when it comes to turnout. If we imagine that the folks who are the most enthusiastic are the ones who are much more likely to show up, then Bernie Sanders could pull away with this because he has the most enthusiastic backers. However, there's another scenario here, and that's more of a persuasion scenario. If you imagine that the folks who have Pete Buttigieg as their second choice, not yet their first, but aren't enthusiastic about their current first choice candidates, continue to move to him, as many of them have over the last week, then that would give Buttigieg more of a boost, and he would end up just barely on top. All of which is to say, this is still fluid and dynamic, and that's the way you look at this race. And I think the other thing, Margaret, here is if you understand what's going on inside the party, there is an argument going on about electability, who can beat Donald Trump, and there is an argument going on about the direction of the party that we have watched throughout this campaign. Those two things are still unsettled in the minds of voters, and as long as they are, the candidate race probably is too.
So what did we actually learn from the confusion in Iowa?
Yeah, Monday night was a long week.
Yeah.
But there's a couple of things that stood out. One is that Sanders' support, that was exactly as we expected it to be in the polling. Also, Pete Buttigieg hit his polling numbers. But Joe Biden underperformed his polling. And I think a lot of that had to do with the fact that he's had the least enthusiastic voters. Going forward, we learn a political lesson from this, and that is it's that enthusiasm that has to translate into turnout, and it doesn't necessarily. So going forward, you want to see if he can be, he's been in the minds of voters, the safe choice, but does that motivate them to go and caucus or stand in line? I think that's a political question for him going forward.
Will we ever get clarity on what happened in Iowa?
Well, in this sense, yes, because right now, Sanders and Buttigieg, we estimate that they've gotten about an equal number of delegates, and this is a delegate race at the end of the day. The rest, who's narrowly up, who's narrowly down, quite frankly, is about spin and it's about media coverage, but really it's about that delegate race. As for the particulars of the numbers, maybe not.
All right, Anthony Salvanto, thank you for making sense of it all for us.
Thanks.
We'll be back in a moment with our political panel.